This is Eddie Hearn, Matchroom Boxing. You're watching Sporting Icons. You don't need to be anywhere else.
So with the official announcement for Anthony Joshua versus Tyson Fury, or Tyson Fury versus Anthony Joshua, however it is you want to say it, some people are quite temperamental about it, and I am led to believe that this particular fight for Undisputed will be announced very, very soon. But again, that'll be no surprise to anybody. I think most people could pretty much gather that. Now, how well is this particular fight going to do at the box office? We're talking domestically, we're talking Europe, we're talking stateside, we're talking globally. Now, I will be giving you guys and girls some stats, some pay-per-view numbers. And where do you think it's going to fit between some of them? Will it be the highest grossing fight of all time globally? Will it be the highest grossing fight just domestically? I say just, but it's going to take some beating. And again, I'll show you that in a second. Is it going to be the highest grossing pay-per-view boxing fight just involving a Brit? Lots of different questions, okay? Maybe it won't do as well as what people think it's going to do. We really don't know. But I think a lot of it will be dependent on where it's going to be. Even though people can't really attend anyway, I think that still may be a factor because some people will be happy about it. Some people won't be happy about where it's going to be. Now, I know where it's going to be. I found out this past Saturday. Of course, I was asked not to say anything, which of course I won't. But as in, I know what country it's going to be in. I don't know what city, if it's going to be an arena or a stadium. I don't know that. And I don't know the exact date. I just know within a 2-week time frame. That's kind of all I know, but I definitely know what country it's going to be. Unless something's happened between Saturday and now. Okay, who knows? But I think that will be an important factor. Likewise, the important factor will be how much the pay-per-view is going to cost. When I did the interview with Bob Arum 3-4 weeks ago, we were talking about that. And he said that here in the UK, it will be dual broadcast between Sky Sports and BT Sport, obviously box office pay-per-view. Stateside it will be on ESPN. Now, when he says stateside, I should have really asked him to clarify, was he talking just America alone, or was he talking America and surrounding countries where ESPN is available? So I don't really know, but outside of that, it will be DAZN in all the countries, territories where DAZN is available, okay? And anything else where these platforms are not available, there'll be some kind of bidding war, okay? So I think a lot of it will be dependent on the price. Again, me and many of you, we're led to believe that it'll be around about the £30 mark. I know originally people were talking about £40, £50, £100, things like that, but I'm led to believe, as I'm sure many of you are as well, around the £30 mark. So how well is it going to do? Now, when we look at the history of pay-per-view, it all started off in 1971, Muhammad Ali versus Joe Frazier. That was the very first pay-per-view. Not available in homes, you had to go to the cinema, the theatre, to go watch it. So you pay your ticket, that was considered a pay-per-view, okay? So that was the very first one, and it did 2.6 million at the box office, okay? Now, the first one inside people's homes was, again, only available for cable customers, was in 1981, Sugar Ray Leonard versus Thomas the Hitman Hearns. So that's the very first one where it was available for certain customers inside their home. But of course, since then, there's been a lot of pay-per-view fighters, a lot of pay-per-view stars who've been consistent pay-per-views for a lot of their career. Floyd Mayweather, for example, a lot of his fights were pay-per-view, and he did big, big numbers. Same with Mike Tyson. Nowadays, we're talking Canelo, we're talking Anthony Joshua, especially here in the UK. So there's been a lot, and of course, we have to include the likes of Oscar De La Hoya, who've done very, very well at the box office, and Manny Pacquiao as well. So when we're talking pay-per-views, obviously, and it'll be no surprise for most of you, the biggest pay-per-view of all time, globally, of course, is Floyd Mayweather versus Manny Pacquiao. On a global scale, 4.6 million pay-per-view buys. 4.6. That is a phenomenal amount of pay-per-view buys. Okay? Now, that particular fight, it generated over $400 million. Which is about 290 million pounds. That's just pay-per-view. Okay, so of course that doesn't include the sponsorship that fight guy, doesn't include the gate receipts or anything like that. This is just pay-per-view. 4.6 million pay-per-view buys on a global scale. Phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. But of course, when we look at fighters involving a Brit, for example, the record for a Brit is 2.7 million pay-per-view buys. in 2002, Lennox Lewis versus Mike Tyson. That was 2.7 million buys globally, but it was only available on pay-per-view on HBO, Showtime, and Sky Sports. So 3 platforms, 2.7 million pay-per-view buys, which generated $112 million, around 81 million pounds. So again, just the pay-per-view alone. So not including gate receipts or anything like that. So 2.7 million for Lennox Lewis versus Mike Tyson on 3 networks, HBO, Showtime, and Sky Sports. The second highest is 2.4 million in 2007, Floyd Mayweather versus Ricky Hatton. So 2.4 million, and that was on HBO and Sky Sports. So it was available on 2 pay-per-view platforms, whereas Lewis and Mike Tyson was available on 3. This one was available on 2, HBO and Sky Sports. But it actually generated more money than what the Lennox Lewis versus Mike Tyson fight did. Even though the Lennox Lewis versus Mike Tyson did 300,000 pay-per-view buys more, but it actually didn't generate as much money as Floyd Mayweather versus Ricky Hatton, which generated globally $134 million worth of pay-per-view. 97 million pounds, okay? In third place, you've got, in 1996, Frank Bruno versus Mike Tyson, Part 2, the rematch. 2.1 million pay-per-view buys. And that was on Showtime and Sky Sports, generated about $98 million, about 70-odd million pounds. So again, huge numbers, okay? But in this modern era, we talk about the modern fighters, the pay-per-view fighters of this modern era, of course, we are talking, as far as Britain is concerned, Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury, and Dillian Whyte. They're the 3 pay-per-view fighters of this current era, okay? Just gone past, of course, you're talking like Amir Khan and a few others. But in 5th place will be, in obviously last year, Deontay Wilder versus Tyson Fury, Part 2. Now, that was available on ESPN, Fox Sports, and BT Sport. So 3 platforms, and that generated 1.2 million pay-per-view buys. So it was available on pay-per-view in the United States of America or stateside, and here in the United Kingdom, shown across ESPN, Fox Sports, and BT Sport. So it's a pretty good number, right? In 4th place, believe it or not, in 2018 was Anthony Joshua versus Alexander Povetkin, 1.25 million. So just a little bit above Wilder versus Fury. But unlike Wilder versus Fury, which was on ESPN, Fox, and BT Sport, that 1.25 million for Joshua Povetkin was only available on Sky Sports pay-per-view. So again, very good numbers. In 3rd place, 2019, Andy Ruiz Jr. versus Anthony Joshua, Part 2, the rematch at 1.6 million, or just under 1.6 million. It's 1.57 million, something like that. And again, that was only available on Sky Sports. But again, that was at a time where the pay-per-view price, it was £20, but then went up to £25 for that particular fight. But it did 1.6 million on Sky Sports, which was the only platform where it's available on pay-per-view. Okay, in 2017, so in 2nd place will be Anthony Joshua, and I was surprised by this one, was Anthony Joshua versus Vladimir Klitschko at just over 1.6 million pay-per-view buys. But again, that was only on Sky Sports. Now, I'm surprised by that because I actually thought it was top. But it's not top. In 1st place, currently, of this particular era, Anthony Joshua versus Joseph Parker in 2018, 1.8 million pay-per-view buys. Again, that was only available on Sky Sports. So by the looks of it, Anthony Joshua has only had pay-per-view on Sky Sports. He's never had one on ESPN or Fox or Showtime or anything like that. Tyson Fury, of course, has. But Joshua is still outdoing everybody else, even though he's only had Sky Sports. So currently, that's the record for this particular modern era. 1.8 million pay-per-view buys, Anthony Joshua versus Joseph Parker. Of course, it was a unification fight. Now, is Fury and Joshua, are they going to break 1.8 million pay-per-view buys? For sure, we know it's going to be pay-per-view on Sky Sports and BT Sport. So already, that's going to be the first time Joshua's going to have a pay-per-view on more than one platform. So he's going to be at a bit of an advantage to try and break that 1.8 million pay-per-view buys, isn't he? Stateside, ESPN, pay-per-view, how much is it going to be? Are they going to be charging $80? Would people in America, would they be okay paying their usual pay-per-view rate of $80 to watch two Brits fight. Maybe because it is heavyweight and it is for undisputed. So maybe there'll be a lot. But I don't think people are going to be knocking down the doors if it is going to be that much. But again, how much it's going to be, we'll find out in time. So what do you guys and girls think? Do you think that Anthony Joshua versus Tyson Fury for undisputed can break the current era pay-per-view buys for a British fighter of 1.8 million? Obviously Joshua versus Parker. Can it beat that one? Can it break the record, the world record on a global scale for a British fighter, Lennox Lewis versus Mike Tyson at 2.7 million pay-per-view buys? Can it break 2.7 million? Can we go a little bit further? Can it break 4.6 million pay-per-view buys on a global scale? Can it break 4.6 million to become the highest pay-per-view in the history of boxing? Or will it not do as well as what we think? Maybe it won't do as well as Wilder vs Fury Part 2. Maybe it will. I think most people probably agree that it will. If Joshua is beating that by fighting the likes of Povetkin and Ruiz Jr, the rematch of course, and Vladimir Klitschko, then you would think that a Fury-Joshua fight would probably break that particular one. Where's it going to finish? For me, I think that it will break pay-per-view records of this particular era, as in it will break the 1.8 million for Joshua versus Parker. I think it will break that. Will it break Lennox Lewis versus Mike Tyson 2.7 million? It's going to be a tall order, but I think it can. It can. Can it break Floyd Mayweather versus Manny Pacquiao at 4.6 million? I think you're really pushing it, to be honest with you. But, to be honest, it wouldn't surprise me. No, actually, I would be a little surprised. 4.6 million pay-per-view buys globally, that's a hell of a lot. That's a hell of a lot, because I suppose one of the biggest questions is, outside of how much is a pay-per-view going to cost, how much interest is there in this particular fight outside the United Kingdom? Drop your thoughts below. Click thumbs up, subscribe. Catch you on the next video.